Hello and welcome to Life with Jane. I'm a bit red-cheeked because I've been out in the garden all day. It is 3:20 and my video will go out at 6 o'clock this evening, so I'm quite behind, but I thought, well, I need to really get cracking on it and then I can get back out in the garden. We're at the start of, in the southeast, a mini heat wave. They always say mini heat wave. The temperature today is probably 24, 23, something like that. It's very warm. I think it's going to get up to 26, 27 degrees, so it might get even warmer. It's lovely. I have a hat. So this is my gardening hat because it's got all sorts of bits and pieces on. So basically I always go out with a hat so that I can keep my my face covered as much as I can. I always have face cream on, which is factor 30, and I put I've got sleeves down to about there. My gardening gloves come up to here, so I'm not getting too much sun, because I think the difficulty is, sorry, my hair everywhere. I think the difficulty is that when you're in the garden, you can be out there for, I took the dog for a walk at 7 o'clock this morning. In fact, no, it was about 10 to 7 because it was so bright. And I got back at about 7:30. I put the bed washing in the washing machine, got that done and out on the washing line, because there is nothing nicer in the spring and summertime to have fresh hung washing out on the line, blowing in the sun. I don't leave it out too long. I leave it until it's dry, which was a couple of hours, and then I bring it straight in, because the sun can fade it if it's out all day and you've got the blazing sun coming right down on it. And I get the sun in the garden all the way through in the morning until about 3 o'clock or so. Then it starts coming round over the house to the front garden, but it makes it quite nice to sit out there. It's not too hot to sit, so I'm going to be going and sitting out shortly for an hour or so, because my patio is now in the shade, which is quite nice, because otherwise it gets too hot. I think you have to be a little bit more careful as you get older with your skin and not exposing it to too much sun. Don't get me wrong, vitamin D is really good for you and you need a certain amount of sun, but if you're in the garden, as I say, this morning I probably got into the garden about 9 o'clock, and it was, well, I've come in for a drink and something to eat about 1 o'clock. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, sort of 4 hours or so in the garden. And if you were out there without having a hat on or anything like that, you can get a little too much sun exposure. You need to, as I say, protect yourself. We never used to do that when we were younger, but again, there's so many skin cancers and things going around if you expose yourself to the sun. So I'm a little bit more careful now. I love the sun. I love sitting out in the sun, but I do make sure I wear a hat now so I don't get too much heat. And I tend to, as I say, keep my shoulders covered most of the time, not all of the time. If it gets really, really hot, as I say, I will cover my shoulders and cover my arms, because I think, again, as you get older, this part of your body is not exactly the nicest thing. It gets a bit old looking, shall we say. So, and I know that, you know, it's really, you should embrace and wear what you want, but the skin is easier to burn and easier to get too much sun. So as I say, I pace myself. I'll be out there shortly again. So what have I been doing? I've been sorting out, I think when I showed you my gardening video last week, on the Wednesday, I tend to do a gardening-y one on the Wednesdays, and I showed you the sage that had died. So I needed to cut all of the dead bits back, which I cut all the dead bits back. And I also showed you my banana plant, which looked as dead as anything. So I still think it's pretty dead, but I've moved it from where it is. And that great big huge pot that was full of really lovely compost, I've put that into that bed. Now, I can't take the compost in, I can't carry a pot that big. My son would just like lift it up, put it and do it in, but no, I can't. So I have to bucket it. So I've got a bucket which is not too big, and I have a trowel, and I trowel it into the bucket and then transplant it in the bucket because I can carry the bucket. So I've put all of that into the bed and tidied the bed up. I've taken two of the bits of willow that were in the tiny little pot, and I've transplanted those at the back as well and just put a little stake in. I've then dug the soil over where the pot was, and I've transplanted, or I've taken the pot further down the garden. I've then, yesterday, which was Sunday, again, I was out in the garden all day because it was lovely. And I've tidied and trimmed and sorted out some of the patio down the end of the garden, and just sorted it out, tidied it up, and made a secure piece right at the end of the garden, because I think I was telling you before, I did have a shed next door to my summer house down the end of the garden. My summer house is now my shed. My shed was falling to bits, so when the family came to do my fencing, they took the shed down. So where the shed was, the end of the garden, it's garden backing onto garden. So that garden, the fence that's there, is not maybe the best fence. And so I've put some planting in front of it. I've put some bamboo. And the bamboo's in a pot because it's easier in a pot, because bamboo does sort of go everywhere, and so I've kept it in a pot. So that will sort of continue to grow up and hopefully hide that bit. But I needed to sort of make it a little bit more secure. So I put a little bit of fairly low fencing with some, it looks a bit of a mess, but it'll do, with some wooden slats and things over the top. And then I've put a couple of chairs and the garden heat lamp thing in that part of the garden, which frees up the other part of the garden. And some of the stuff was supposed to be taken by the scrap man when they came and took the bits of the shed away. So I paid for them to come and put the shed away, and they were supposed to be, as I say, taking the scrap as well. But they said, oh, we'll come back for it, but they never did. So I've got quite a bit of metal that needs to go down to the tip, but it's a bit big to go into my car. So I need again to wait for family to come round. And I always sort of, the family's so busy with their own things and obviously their family that I feel guilty. They all work during the week, and the only time they have office at the weekends. And if they're coming round to me and transporting stuff down the tip and stuff, it's so anyway, I've just made the most of it down the end of the garden, and it looks pretty good. I'm quite pleased with it. It's opened it up. I've taken the lattice fence thing that I put in place to stop the dog from going down the end of the garden, but I think she's been fine the last couple of days, so I'm hoping it's going to work. We'll have to see. It's one of those things, you wait and see. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of days, which is why I haven't had much time to do too much getting ready, vlogging and cooking and stuff like that. Yes, there will be a Foodie Friday. It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be a vegetable pasta bakey thing, which is a really quick, economical, easy supper dish that I did, or it's going to be the treacle steam sponge pudding, which goes in the microwave. Now, I've made it once, which wasn't particularly good. I followed the recipe I always do things in the steamer, but a lot of you were concerned about the cost of having the gas on for 2 hours to steam it. So and a lot of people said, oh, you can do it in the microwave. So anyway, I looked up how long it needed to take, and the consensus was about 12 minutes. 12 minutes, it came out like an absolute brick. You could literally, I mean, it was a bit like if you've made scones and the scones have gone really, you've left them out overnight and they've gone quite sort of hard. That's exactly what it was like. So I was able to slice it and I toasted it, and because I'm not wasting anything. It tasted fine, but it was really, you couldn't like spoon it out beautifully and soft and everything. So anyway, I need to reduce the temperature of the microwave down quite a lot. It needs to be on medium and not high. And then I think I only need to put it in for maybe 8, maybe 9 minutes. I think probably 8 minutes, and I will check. So I think that will probably be about right. So I might do it this week, I might do it the following week, and I might do the pasta bake thing because I've already got that one sort of in the bag. What else have we got? Oh, I was watching over the Easter. There was an article on the television about keeping fit and keeping active, and there was all sorts of exercises and things that you can do. I think I do enough exercises with my walking up the park and gardening and things like that. And there was one where you evidently sort of squat down on your haunches and your knees. So if you kneel down but keep your sort of toes behind you instead of flat, keep them sort of slightly bent. And then you have to, with your arms, swing yourself up to a standing position. And evidently, if you're under 30, under 30, you can do it relatively easily. So I was talking to my son and daughter-in-law, and they can both do it. Now, my youngest son is early 40s, but is fairly fit. My daughter-in-law is just coming up for 40, and she's relatively fit. And so it's quite interesting. And obviously the grandchildren could do it quite easily. And so I was like, there's not a hope in hell. I struggle even just getting onto my haunches and standing up without having to put a hand down. So, you know, that's something I couldn't do. But there was another thing that was to do with your brain, right brain, left brain, and keeping your mind active. And it was, you make an L with one hand and you make a V with the other hand. And then you swap it over. So you make a V with that hand and an L with that. And an L and a V, and a V and an L, and an L and a V, and a V and an L. Or it's actually easier seeing it on the screen. And you're supposed to do it as fast as you can and keep going. Now you see, isn't that interesting? If I'm doing it without looking at my screen, so I'm looking at the screen so I can see myself, I can do it relatively quickly because I can, so you're supposed to do it like that and do it as quickly as that. Now, if I'm not looking at the screen, and I don't know quite why that works, I find I do struggle with it. So I can do it, but I can do it quite slowly. I have been practicing a little bit, so maybe that's the reason. So it's evidently really good for your right brain, left brain, and activity to try and help you, you know, do things that keep you your brain working. So I thought that was an amusing little one for everybody to have a go at. So I think that's going to be it this week on Monday. I will be doing something on Wednesday. I may well be doing another looking around the garden. Oh my goodness, the peonies are out and they are absolutely stunning. So depending on what I'm doing, and how busy I get, I will try and do a walk round the garden on the Wednesday. And then, as I say, there'll be a Foodie Friday, which will either be the pasta bake or it might be the treacle sponge pudding. We'll just have to see, or it might be something else. It's going to be a bit of a surprise this week rather than letting you know exactly what it is, because I haven't really thought about it yet. So that's it. I'm going out in the garden. My face is not quite as red now. You can always tell when you're digging and you're doing something really physical, because as I say, exerting yourself. The tip is to make sure you drink a lot and have 5-minute breaks here and there. So I will sit down and have a 5-minute break and have a drink and then go out and do some more, because otherwise I'm terrible. I can work in the garden all day and not even think about food or drink or anything. Come in and I have a raging headache because I haven't stopped. So now, out of habit, I make sure that every hour or so I sit down, have a drink, and just have a 5-minute break. So I hope if you are in a part of the UK that can enjoy this lovely weather, I think it's right the way across the UK. Don't quote me on it, but I think it is. So hopefully if you're from Scotland through to Yorkshire, down south to Devon and Cornwall, wherever you may be, I hope the weather is glorious for you this week and you get a chance to get out there and get some vitamin D. If you are across the world, wherever you are, I hope the weather is good for you. And if it's not, well, hopefully you'll enjoy my video on Wednesday if I'm walking around the garden, because it is glorious. But I will be watering because my pots and plants and things do need some watering. So, as always, please stay safe and well. Please be kind and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.